Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is. 7th chapter. Text number 5. Aparayam itas tu anyam prakritim vidi me param jivabhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat aparayam apara, inferior, yam, this, ita, besides this, tu, but, anyam, another, prakritim, energy, vidhi, just try to understand, me, my, param, superior, jiva bhutam, comprising the living entities, mahabaho, almighty armed one, yaya, by whom, idam, this, daryate, is utilized or exploited, Jagat, the material world. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both from material nature, both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful, as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Aparimita druvas tanubrito yadi sarvagatas tarina sasyateti niyamo dhruva netaratha ajani chayan mayam tat avimuchaniyan tribhavet samam anujanatam yat ana amatam mata dustataya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your Lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entity to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by Him. These living entities are His superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme. But they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respect with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna, and when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuttapada Kamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sedopam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishaganvidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Govika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Ganjana Gaudangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Apariyam vidastanyam prakritim vidime param jivavatam mahabhayo yayadam dharyate jagat. Krishna is continuing to speak to Arjuna. He's explaining that besides the inferior energy, which he explained just before this verse, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu, 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements, beyond this, there is a superior energy, which are the living entities. And that is actually the first step to understand in spiritual life. That the jiva, the living entity, is completely different from the gross material body and the subtle material body. That the jiva is a spirit soul. And then, with the help of the representative of the Lord, the spiritual master, one should practice, one should engage in spiritual, devotional activities. And after doing that, he will be able to realize practically his spiritual nature, not just theoretically. And that is actually the goal, to realize one's spiritual nature. Atma Sakshatkar, direct perception of the self. And then also direct perception of the Supreme Self, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Being, Krishna. It is mentioned that actually there are 2 kinds of living entities. Of course, first of all, we have to understand that the Supreme Lord is there, Vishnu Tattva. And then actually there are many energies of the Lord. The foremost is the internal energy, the spiritual energy. And then after that, there is the inferior energy, the material energy. And then the living entities are there, who are inferior than the spiritual, transcendental energy, or they are inferior to the Supreme Lord. But they are superior than the external energy and material energy. They are actually in between. Therefore they are known as Tatastha Shakti, marginal energy. So sometimes they may be under the influence of the internal energy. Sometimes they may be under the influence of the external energy. But of these jivas, of the marginal energy, Tatastha Shakti, so it is explained in the scriptures by the acharyas, that basically there are 2 categories. One, the Nitya Siddha, those who are eternally perfect, always engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his expansions, Narayan, Vishnu, and so on. And the second category they are known as Nityabada, Anadibada jivas. So since time immemorial they are conditioned They are also in terms of Krishna, by nature, but they are conditioned and they are not engaged in the service of the Lord. They are like in a dormant state, in a seed-like form. When this material world is becoming manifested by the will of the Lord, from time to time, then some of the jivas who are conditioned, they come to this material world. And by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, who is also descending to the material world to deliver the fallen conditioned souls, to establish the principles of religion. So by the mercy of the Lord, or his representative, the conditioned souls, and they may revive, or they may understand their spiritual nature, and then by engaging in spiritual activities under the guidance of the scriptures, the devotees of the Lord, or the Supreme Lord himself, so they can slowly but surely become free from the external inferior energy, and they can be properly situated under the influence of the internal energy and practically understand the transcendental spiritual nature. So that is actually the goal of life, to realize one's transcendental existence. And as Prabhupada is explaining, so towards the end, that when one is free from material ideas, conceptions, and when he is engaged in the service of the Lord, then he becomes fully Krishna conscious, and then he is liberated, even being in this material world. So in the spiritual world, all the living entities, they are liberated, engaged in the service of the Lord. The majority. So of course, as explained, so some jivas are there in the dormant state, even in the spiritual realm, in the Brahmajyoti, which is Krishna's effulgence. And they remain there till this material world is manifested, and then they have a chance to come to this world, and by the mercy of the Lord and the representative of the Lord, and then they may understand their spiritual nature, their actual nature and relationship with the Lord. The inferior energy is there, made of the three modes of material nature: Sattva gun, Rajagun and Tamagun. Mode of ignorance, mode of passion, and mode of goodness. And of course various elements are there in this material world. So what is explained in the previous verse, so the gross elements are there and the subtle elements are there. And then there are so many combinations of these different elements are there. And therefore there are so many different kinds of forms in this material world. There are different living entities in different bodies in this material world, made of the inferior energy. So the human beings only, they actually have a chance to realize their spiritual nature. All the other jivas for them it is practically not possible to become liberated. For example, the animals, or the birds, the beasts, or even the aquatics, and insects, or even living entities in the form of the trees. So for them it is usually not possible to realize their nature, their spiritual nature. Only the human beings, they have the opportunity to realize their spiritual nature if they are in proper association, if they gain this transcendental knowledge and act upon this transcendental knowledge. Only by spiritual practice, especially by devotional service directed towards the Supreme Lord, can one realize one's spiritual nature, can one become free from the influence of this, of the external, inferior, material energy. Therefore it is mentioned that when one has attained this human form of life, so the prime duty is there to try to advance in spiritual life, in spiritual understanding, in Krishna consciousness. So all the human beings, they have this duty to try to advance in spiritual life. That is primary duty. That is most important. Then one has to also act according to the scriptures, the injunctions of the scriptures, and under the guidance of the spiritual master in various activities, according to one's psychophysical nature also. And one has to engage in activities for maintaining the body or maintaining the family if one is householder. But all with the purpose ultimately to make advancement in spiritual life. So the human form of life is not meant for sense gratification. It is meant for spiritual advancement, and ultimately then means for serving the Supreme Lord. Because that is the nature of the jiva. Jivera supoi krishnera nityadas. To be acting as servant of the Lord. So therefore, the human being has to try his best to make advancement in spiritual life. But so first one has to get the knowledge, sambandha gyan, of understanding one's position and one's relationship with the Lord. And then one has to gain knowledge, abhideya gyan, by which one can engage properly in spiritual activities, by which one can serve the Lord for the pleasure of the Lord. And by doing that, then there will be practical realization of the existence of the Supreme Lord Krishna, practical realization of the soul, of one's own self. But then one has to go further on, and one has to try to be fully absorbed with body, mind and words in the service of the Lord. Iha yasya haryadasya karmana marasagira nikilashvavyastu jivan mukta socchate. If one is constantly engaged in devotional activities with body, mind and world and the words, tan, man, vacha, then one can become liberated, even in this material existence, in this material world, in this material body, by being completely engaged in transcendental spiritual activities for the pleasure of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, one can then come also to the highest stage, Prayojan Gyan, where then one's love for Krishna will gradually manifest. And then there's a loving exchange with Krishna. And then the full realization will be there. And then constant engagement in devotional service will be there. Beyond this material existence, beyond the modes of material nature, above this inferior energy. So this spiritual life is a gradual process. Gradually one can advance. Step by step one can advance. So, but in order to advance rapidly, one has to be under the guidance of the spiritual master, and one has to be very serious, very sincere, and use one's intelligence, and pray for the mercy of, first of all, the spiritual master, the representative of the Lord, and then pray the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Kali Yuga avatar, the incarnation of the age of Kali, who is most merciful, munificent. Nama Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful. Padida Pavana Hetu Tavavatar. So he has incarnated in order to deliver the most fallen, Padit. Padit Pavana, purifying the most fallen. And in the age of Kali, everyone is fallen. But by the causeless mercy of Sri Guru and Guranga, even in the age of Kali, one can advance in spiritual life. And one may also attain perfection in spiritual life. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord himself, none different from Radha and Krishna. Swayam Bhagavan, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he came as a devotee to show how to engage in devotional activities, how to make advancement in spiritual life, how to become perfect. Therefore, intelligent persons, they will take shelter of him. As is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures. Krishna vanamtacha Krishnam sangapangastapasadam yagyai sanketapaya yajanti sumedasaha. Sumedasaha, those who are intelligent, they will take shelter of Mahaprabhu. Who is always engaged in chanting the holy names, and who is accompanied by his associates, who are also always engaged in chanting the holy names. So, in the age of Kali, after Mahaprabhu, also all the followers of Mahaprabhu, they have all taken shelter of Mahaprabhu. And like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has taken the same verse, Krishna Vanam Tisa Krishnam, and mentioned that in his book, Bhajan Rahasya, the secrets of how to do bhajan. And there he has so taken the same verse in the Mangalacharan, in invocation to the book, auspicious invocation. And instead of the last line, Yajanti Sumedasaha is mentioning Bhajami Kali Pavanaha. I worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a purifier of the age of Kali, of the embodied beings who are here in human form of life in the age of Kali. Also, Jiva Goswami, known as the greatest scholar of the followers of Mahaprabhu, he has mentioned in his Sandarbhas, which are books who are very nicely establishing Krishna as the Supreme Lord, and similarly also Mahaprabhu as being no different from Krishna, based on the Bhagavatam and on other Vedic literatures. So he has refuted all different kinds of conceptions which may be there by other so-called transcendentalists who have some misconceptions. But he has clearly established the fact that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Ete chamsa kalapumsam krishnastu bhagavansayam indriyar vyakulam lokam ridyanti yoge yoge. The many personalities of Godhead. But origin personality, Adipurush, Parameshwar, that is Sri Krishna. Ete chamsa kalapam sam krishnastu bhagavansayam indriyar vyakulam lokam ridyanti yuge yuge. So he is appearing regularly in this world, delivering or helping the pious persons, the godly persons, and establishing the principles of religion, and also then killing demoniac persons or destroying the demoniac tendencies of the conditioned souls. So Jiva Goswami, in his invocation in the first verse of his treatise, the Satsandabharjiya, is also taking shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he has explained Antar Krishna Bahayir Gauram Dashit Angari Vaibhavam Kaula Krishna Sankirtana Sma Krishna Chaitanya Ashritaha. So Kali Sankirtanair Adhyasma. So in the age of Kali, by doing Sankirtan, one can become perfect in spiritual life. By taking shelter of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So the best way, ultimately the only way, to become free from the external energy, the inferior energy, the modes of material nature, is chanting the holy names, the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So therefore Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, so he has glorified the chanting of the holy names. And he many times has quoted this verse from the Vedic literatures, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kaulau nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyatha. Then in the age of Kali, there is no other way. There is no other way. 3 times mentioning to emphasize. But the chanting of the holy names, the chanting of the holy names. Iti sodashakam nam kali kalma sunashanam nattara parataro sarva vedeshu drishyati. So the 16 names of the Mahamantra, Kali kalmashana nashanam, it can destroy the kalmash, the impurities which are there in this material world, especially in the age of Kali. The environment is impure. The consciousness, the heart of the conditioned souls is impure. But by chanting the holy names, the consciousness, the heart, the environment becomes purified. So that is mentioned in all the Vedic literatures also, that especially in the age of Kali, one should chant the holy names, the Mahamantra. Nama yagya mahayagya Kali kalmashanashanam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prityartha Nama yagya samarpanam. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prityartham, for the purpose of giving pleasure to Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, we are chanting the holy names. Nama Yagya. So it is known as Sankirtan Yagya. It is a sacrifice. Chanting the holy names. And so by doing this, so one can quickly advance in spiritual life and become free from this material existence and realize the wonderful transcendental form of the Lord and one's own transcendental form. Nama Yagya Mahayagya. So it is a great sacrifice, the chanting of the holy names. Individually one should do and collectively also one should do. For one's benefit and for the benefit of others. So the devotee is not only concerned about himself, but is always trying to also help others. By giving the knowledge he has received, by giving the Mahamantra, the understanding how important it is to chant holy names, he will give that to others. And even by giving prasadam, so one can benefit others. Padida pavana nama nishtaraya naradamaha Radha Krishna Surupaya Chaitanyaya Namo Namaha. So we offer obeisances to Mahaprabhu. And then one, by chanting then the holy names, so even those who are very fallen, they can become liberated. So therefore Krishna Nam is also addressed as Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the fallen. So the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, are non different from Radha and Krishna. Therefore the Maha Mantra sometimes is also known as the Yugal Mantra. So Yugal, pair, two personalities are there, Radha and Krishna. Hare refers to Srimati Radharani. Hare disi Krishna, Mana, Krishna Hlada Swarupini. Ato Haritite Ananaiva Siradika Sirada Parikirtita. So Hare refers to Srimati Radharani, who is stealing or attracting Krishna's mind by her beauty, by her devotional service, by her love, by her qualities. She is able to attract Krishna's mind, the Supreme Lord. So Radharani has many names. So the principal name, of course, is Radha or Radharani, but she has so many names. And there's Shri Radha Sahasranam, the 1,000 names even mentioned of Srimati Radharani. So one of her names is also Hara. So the internal energy of the Lord, the pleasure potency of the Lord, Hladini Shakti. And but while pronouncing, when calling out, then it becomes Hare. Hara becomes Hare. Just like another name is Radha. But when we call out to her, then we say Radhe. So Hara refers to, in the Hare, refers to Hara. So we call out to Srimati Radharani. Please engage me in the service of Krishna. So Krishna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kris means who is attracting all. Na means Ananda, the source of all pleasure, Paramananda. And that refers also to Krishna's beautiful, transcendental luster. His complexion is just like the black, dark rain cloud. Therefore Krishna's other name is Megha Sham, or Shama Sundar. Sham, darkish in complexion, but Sundar, most beautiful. So the Maha Mantra refers to, or is indicating Radha and Krishna. And then their wonderful pastimes. Everything is included in the holy names in the Maha Mantra. So slowly but surely everything is revealed by sincerely chanting the holy names. But first of all, one has to follow rules and regulations and try to have this transcendental knowledge and try to learn how to become free from the modes of material nature by first of all constantly engaging in spiritual activities under the guidance of the spiritual master. And then gradually one becomes free from the influence of the external energy, and then one can be internally absorbed in the service of the Lord under the influence of the internal energy of the Lord. So it is a gradual process. The progress is gradual, but if one is sincere, then by the mercy of Hari Guru Vaishnava, by the mercy of the Lord, the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, one may attain perfection in one's spiritual life. Any question? Very clear. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we stop here. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Yes.
I like you were talking today about Vibhu Chaitanya.
Oh, Vibhu Chaitanya.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it very much, and I want to thank you very much
Okay.
for this talking. It was very wonderful. He was a great person. I knew him also.
Yeah, a great devotee, wonderful devotee.
Devotees don't remember so much. But
No, of course, because
but the old devotees they remember.
yes. Because it's already now 13 years ago he left. So new devotee, they don't know him. Yeah. But those who are here at that time, and so they had fond memories of Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu. Wonderful devotee, simple devotee, but completely dedicated to the service of the Lord.
Thank you so much for
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare